Story 1. Easy. I live in Denmark. All I have to do is try to engage strangers in conversation. We do not do well with that. Just take a stroll down the street and make small talk with random people. I will make at least 1,000 in about 10 minutes. Story 2. From my experience, just talk honestly about infertility and in vitro fertilization. When am I having another baby? Long, detailed medical response. Story 3. At first, be myself so I can see when my normal behavior makes people uncomfortable. Once I understand that, I think as a 200-pound man, wearing a tube top in public and standing very close to people would be a good strategy. Story 4. Hello, I just continue to exist. I am autistic, and apparently I am always making people uncomfortable by just being around them. Story 5. Eat a large amount of cheese and walk up and down the aisle on a commuter train, humming to myself while I toot audibly every third step. Story 6. Walk down the street with a bunch of environmental pamphlets and wear a shirt that says, "Meat is murder." Story 7. As a taxi driver, it would be really easy to make every customer uncomfortable by unleashing the 400 horsepower of the i5 xDrive 40 in sport mode and turning off dynamic stability control, especially in the winter. Also, I would not do that anyway because I am too proud of actually being a good taxi driver. Story 8. Dick out in public. Not in a flasher or a nudist sort of way, but an accidentally sticking through the fly of my pants type of way. Story 9. Go on the subway, try to engage the carriage in a sing-along. Then try to start a conversation with everyone. Story 10. Stop suppressing the urge to share random animal mating facts. This happens about every 10 to 15 minutes for me, like clockwork. Story 11. Stop random people on the street and start sharing surprising fun facts. For example, did you know that when baking you can replace eggs with blood and it will come out the same? Story 12. Make eye contact, smile, and start chatting with every random person in public as if I have known them for years. Story 13. Instead of answering the question, "How are you today?" with the obligatory response, "Fine, thank you," give an honest answer. Story 14. So many options. I could stare at a person's forehead while they talk instead of meeting their eyes. Story 15. Pretend I am a believing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints again and try to convert everyone. I am glad I do not believe that nonsense anymore. Story 16. My girlfriend's former family, as she is divorced, dislikes me. Whenever I show up, several members of her former family also appear, so I would be a millionaire by now. Story 17. I call it creepy hand. When you shake someone's hand, tickle their palm with your finger before you let go. It is a female version of creepy uncle. When you give someone a hug, tickle their neck with your stubble before you let go. Story 18. Just walk around acting weird in superpopulated places. Probably get a quick 1,000 no problem. Just tweak out a bit, then carry on with my day. Story 19. Discussing my definitive proof of a flat earth and asking if I can get them to subscribe to my social media accounts. Story 20. This is so easy. Go to open mic comedy nights and do bad crowd work. As a man, walk around a mall wearing an ultra-horny anime t-shirt or holding one of those body pillows. Call women females. Repeat borderline offensive jokes in a corporate setting. Not bad enough to get fired, though. Bring up divisive political topics at any chance I get, as well as irrelevant demographic information into the conversation. Sing in public with only one side of my head shaved. Blare my car horn during stop-and-go traffic. Cough a lot on public transportation. Story 21. Remind everyone that people in the United States are being removed from the streets and sent to countries with which they have no affiliation. These countries are not kind to migrants and have limited resources, if any, and that is the part we know about. Story 22. Does not say someone else. I am old. Every time I move or sit still, I feel uncomfortable. But just in case, I am going to put one of those green scrubbing pads between my buttocks. Give me that money. Story 23. Wear that shirt that says, "Don't bully me or I will come," and walk through a Walmart. Watch the cash roll in. Story 24. I would be wealthy. I have no filter from my brain to my mouth, and I tend to overshare. That, coupled with the fact that I have lived a very colorful life, means I can make many people uncomfortable. Story 25. Televise a marriage proposal to a girl I just met during the Super Bowl advertisement space. The money I make would offset the advertisement cost. Story 26. Pass gas loudly on elevators, public transportation, or any other crowded places where people cannot easily move away. Story 27. I could make a lot of money. I am a teacher, so every time I ask a student to read aloud to the class or do something similar, I get paid. Story 28. I pulled out my phone and said, "Oh, hi mom. Yes, the doctor said it is very contagious. Yes, I am at home. Don't worry." Story 29. Make no changes to my behavior and immediately go from being one of the poorest people in the United States to being one of the richest. Story 30. Bait them into asking about my family, then tell them my mother committed suicide. This sometimes happens without baiting anyway because of small talk. Story 31. I tell anyone that I will give them 20 euros to do a staring contest. I will do some weird things like look into their eyes and moan. Story 32. Step 1. Get on an airplane. Step 2. Pass around my business card and introduce myself. Step 3. Land. Step 4. Get back on the airplane for the return trip. Step 5. Repeat. Story 33. By advertising space on platforms like Joe Rogan and create impactful advertisements. Reach millions of people spending $100 each week. Story 34. Move to New York. Start doing activities on the subway. Preach the Book of Mormon, complain, get a fart machine. Easy. Try to sing the national anthem at football games. There are many opportunities there. Story 35. Walk through the door. My mother-in-law lives with us and I do not even have to say anything. Apparently, I make her feel like she has to walk on eggshells. I do not even talk to her or look at her. Story 36. I can make people uncomfortable with my sense of humor alone, so I guess I started my career as a comedian. Story 37. I'm singing, son, at the top of my voice, with lines like, I like big butts and I cannot lie, and sex, the kind you clean up with a mop and bucket, cannot sing. Story 38. Ever since I started hormone replacement therapy, my testicles have been very itchy. I can't wait to have them removed. Then I scratch my testicles relentlessly and shamelessly, maintaining eye contact. I use the women's restroom and talk about how important feminism is. 3 months later, I haven't earned any money. My friend gives me a t-shirt with just the word brave on it. It slowly dawns on me that Eugene, Oregon, was not the right place for my abilities. So I moved to Cleveland. I bought a mansion within the first 6 months. I don't miss being broke. That's for sure. Story 39. Stare at people as if they did something wrong or offensive. It is subtle enough to avoid crossing social boundaries but makes people much less comfortable. I use this on coworkers I do not like to talk to. Story 40. I am a black woman in Texas. I will just wear a Donald Trump 2028 shirt. And before I am downvoted, I am a Democrat. Story 41. I am fairly old with 2 strategies. First, go to a nude beach. Second, make out with my husband in a crowded venue such as Disney World. Story 42. Keep glancing at their midriff when talking to them regardless of their gender, age, appearance, or clothing. Story 43. I would just tell people they look attractive. That made me uncomfortable, so I suppose it would do the same to others. Story 44. Intensely inappropriate cleavage in a place that disapproves of it. I am wealthy and probably stoned to death. Story 45. Stand just slightly over their shoulder, right out of their peripheral vision. They can feel my presence and then sneeze. Story 46. Easy. Walk into a crowded mall and just start shouting, "Why does my skin itch so badly? Was it Mike? I bet it was Mike." Story 47. Casually lift up my toupee, scratch my bald head, then press it back down while maintaining eye contact and wearing my creepy smile. Story 48. Is this a real question? I would be the richest person in the world right now if this were true. All I have to do is breathe and talk. I do not even know what I am saying most of the time. It seems to be a double-edged sword, either putting people at ease in ways they have never experienced or, well, the complete opposite. So maybe it would cancel each other out and I would still be broke now that I think of it. Story 49. I'm going to compliment strangers while walking through crowds. Hey, nice shirt. To a man, I bet you are confident and strong. To a woman, I bet your grandkids are very cute. To a child, you are going to make a positive impact on the world. To a senior citizen, story 50. I am a middle-aged man. I can walk on a college campus and make 2,500 women uncomfortable by holding a stare longer than about 6 seconds. I could put on a Make America Great Again hat and hang out in Times Square with Second Amendment signs and probably go home that day a millionaire, although maybe with a black eye or two. Story 51. Dress female presenting in public. I live in a deeply conservative state. After that, start discussing liberal politics or explaining why everything is deteriorating. Apparently, that was enough to get me fired as a substitute teacher, so I must have made someone very uncomfortable. Story 52. I talk about my job. I am a nurse. My specialty is infection prevention. There is a lot of stool, urine, and contaminated wounds involved. Story 53. Deep dive into talking about my job in hospice care. If I fail at making them uncomfortable, then I at least educate. Story 54. What is your wiping method when you go to the bathroom? Do you scrunch toilet paper or fold it? Best awkward conversation starter with strangers courtesy of Speak No Evil. Story 55. I add excessive vibrato every time I sing. There is no musicality, just meaningless vibrato to sound exaggerated. Story 56. Ask people how much money they make and what their net worth is. Also ask if I can be their beneficiary. Story 57. A woman in Texas died recently from a brain-eating amoeba that entered her brain after she cleaned her nose with tap water. It is present in many still bodies of water and, even with treatment, has a very high fatality rate. Hopefully, that made someone uncomfortable. If the rule is that you get $100 every time you make someone uncomfortable, I would just keep eating really hot peppers. I am someone. Story 58. Walk into a room with spiders. I hate spiders. The easiest and most uncomfortable $100,000 per hour I have ever theoretically made. Story 59. Stand at the urinal during a random urine analysis with your pants around your ankles, making eye contact with the lieutenant assigned to watch the collection. Story 60. I would walk up to strangers and ask to borrow their phones or ask them to walk me to the bathroom because I cannot go by myself. Story 61. I am a 300-pound, 6'5" black man with a neutral facial expression in America. Excuse me while I walk down a few public streets in affluent communities and mind my own business. Story 62. Telling people scientifically supported truths about animal abuse around us. Essentially being myself. Story 63. I am an atheist and do not believe any of this nonsense, but I would walk into a large church wearing an inverted cross around my neck and a pentagram shirt, saying, "Hail Satan." I might even carry a dead chicken with me. When I am asked to leave that church, I will go to the next one. Story 64. Put up a free sushi stand and hand out sushi to customers. After the customer eats some, proceed to close the seaweed wrap. Story 65. Just be my normal self and start talking about serial killers and similar topics, and how much I like clowns. Story 66. Make beans and lentils a staple and then spend my days in an elevator. Although a busy subway car might present an opportunity to increase by an order of magnitude. Story 67. Dress like a baby, soil myself, and go around telling people I had an accident in a high-pitched voice. Story 68. Just sit next to them in public and say nothing. Who is actually comfortable when this happens? I do not care if you take public transit. It is always awkward. Story 69. Walk up to someone, lock eyes with them, hold eye contact until they become uncomfortable and walk away. 9 times out of 10, they will be uncomfortable. The others will become lifelong friends. Win-win. Story 70. Stick to my day job as a daycare teacher. If I am not making thousands of dollars by holding the children accountable, then the system is broken. I am not abusive to the children. Just admitting you are wrong makes them uncomfortable. Story 71. Unzip with a smile and stare with a raised brow. Wait for a reaction. Slowly zip back up and frown. Story 72. Start talking about technology in a way that the average person would not understand. Story 73. Easy. Just stare bug-eyed at people while muttering. And that's another $100 for this one. If I need a prop, keep extending and retracting a tape measure or clicking an abacus. Story 74. I would ask them what their persona is if they were a gay dog. It is a random and unnecessary question. Story 75. Talk about being a youth sports coach and how much you love coaching players of the opposite sex. Emphasize your preference for coaching the opposite sex without mentioning anything inappropriate. Story 76. Immediately talk about my depression that was caused by my sister and mother dying within 6 months. People really do not love that. Story 77. 50 Shades audiobook on the bus. No headphones, phone at full volume. Wearing a suspiciously large trench coat and breathing exclusively through my mouth, being intentionally loud. For extra creepiness. Very small sunglasses and a necklace with a Furby attached. Story 78. Go outside to a busy street. Many people, perhaps most, feel socially anxious and uncomfortable in public or in crowds. Your presence contributes to their discomfort. Story 79. Just act out the entirety of friendship. I experienced intense pleasure in the sewers. Stay curious. I have behaved badly. Story 80. I will try to learn everything I can about My Little Pony, then put my hair in a ponytail, grow just a mustache, and stare into people's eyes as I talk to them about my infinite knowledge of My Little Pony. I will seemingly hold them verbally hostage and repeatedly insist that they come over to see my vast collection. Story 81. I'm very pregnant right now, and the number of times strangers nod toward my belly and ask how I am doing is remarkable. I could definitely use this to my advantage to make several $100s per day for the next 4 weeks. Story 82. Are there any limits on this at all? Not that I would mean it, but I would say things like, darn, I would do unspeakable things to that person, for everyone who walks through the door. Story 83. Just look random people in the eye for about 2 seconds, then walk away and avoid all other forms of interaction. Story 84. I can turn my feet backwards. People really dislike it. Apologies to every doctor who ever told me to stop doing hypermobility party tricks, but I have student loans to pay off. Story 85. Approach people in grocery stores and stand quietly while looking at the items in their cart. You may mention that purchasing animal products can be harmful. This could create an interesting conversation. Story 86. I just sit down and have a chat with them. I encourage them to invite their friends over too. That always works. Story 87. Walk around naked in downtown areas and live stream it on every platform possible. Before all that, I will try to get a job as a news reporter or something to reach an even bigger audience. I might end up in jail, but probably switch the strategy. If I am naked in there, I might get touched, so I do not want to risk that. Instead, I will make crow noises and just stare at the inmates. Story 88. Easy. I'm autistic, so no matter who I interact with, they always get uneasy. Someone make me richer than Elon Musk now, please. Story 89. I would wear leggings the exact color of my skin, anatomically correct to the last detail, and walk through high population areas making fierce eye contact with everyone. Story 90. Wear a tight dress, short as well, let my hair out, and walk down a busy street. As soon as I see someone look at me, I yell shame. Story 91. Word, I would be a millionaire. All I need to do is exist normally. I would make hundreds of dollars a day. Story 92. I am going to every shopping district remotely nearby, every Walmart, Target, Hy-Vee, mall, and so on. I visit a different town every day, cycling through about 6 broad locations as my full-time job. I pretend to recognize complete strangers, enlist my fiancé into false breakups publicly, stage loud arguments, make my ringtone play audio clips from adult content, create scenes trying to buy inexpensive items with a card that always declines due to insufficient funds, honk at red lights, turn to random people and say, "What?" when nothing was said and insist I heard them ask me something, hold lingerie up to my body in stores to check potential fit, throw tantrums if I do not find the Hot Wheels I am looking for, insist I am being an inconvenience to anyone for anything, sniff shoes at thrift stores, take selfies with people awkwardly behind me, dress extremely well and ensure I have a clear and obvious booger in my nose, or do anything else I can think of. I am going for volume, focusing on weekends. Story 93. I make a lot of jokes about being Asian because I am from Korea. It is really funny to see people's reactions when they do not know me, especially watching a friend laugh near them. I would make a lot of money at work. Story 94. Start dressing up unusually, and eventually I will be able to buy a pregnant furry costume, walk around, and film. I should be wealthy within a day after that. Story 95. Talk about how government never values maintaining explicit consent from those they presume to represent, protect, and serve. Talk about how no child consciously chose to be born indebted to the clearly unethical, counterproductive, asinine, and insane, as far as anyone is aware. Talk about trash culture and trash individuals with their trash values of plastic litter and cigarette butts everywhere. Just open my mouth and watch them squirm. I love it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.